I was thinking about when I was at the gym is that just because things are moving fast, the technology is moving at a pace that our minds can't even keep up with, there's nothing wrong with going back to the basics, going back to the foundational, the blocking and tackling of business, the blocking and tackling of, if it's your work life, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with going back to the blocking and tackling, the things that really keep things going at the ground level. Because it's one thing to work on your air game, and I think like the technologies, the macro, how the macro is changing. You have to work on your micro, which is the foundation of everything. So one of the things I've been thinking about more and more is like really tightening up the foundations, like tightening up the building blocks that got me to this point right now, and really going back and like looking at it. And because once you take off, you use these tools, you use these technologies, and you take off, there's no going back. There's no going back. So it's really important to know that you have a strong foundation. One thing about new technologies is there's always unintended consequences attached to these technologies, just like social media. Like we didn't know the unintended consequences. The founders of the companies like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, or Jack Dorsey from Twitter, they didn't understand how it was going to potentially rip the fabric of society. But also the unintended consequences of it gave people power to voice their opinions. If you rewind, go back hundreds of years ago, and you look at the printing press, the unintended consequence of the printing press is that at a time when most people were illiterate and most people, there wasn't that many leaders, the unintended consequence was the fact that everybody had access to, could read and have access, and they were creating their own things. And sometimes when these technologies hit critical mass, you just don't know the unintended consequences. And you always have to weigh that. You always have to weigh and balance out those things before, proceeding like full blown. So just to be clear, what is an unintended consequence? It's really simple, basically just how it sounds. It's a consequence that comes from a decision that was made that you had no way of foreseeing happen. So what do you think? Let's just brainstorm and just talk it through right now. What are some of the unintended consequences do you think that could come from AI? Specifically some of these digital twins and things that I've shared with you. What are some of the unintended consequences do you think that could take place? Put it in the comments. I want to hear from you. I'm really curious. So when you say market research is being replaced by AI, tell me a little bit more about that.
Companies are not hiring companies like mine to do focus groups or surveys. Mm-hmm. They're doing it through AI. And they're getting it's saying traditional market research costs too much and takes too long to do.
Oh, wow.
Which is fine. Mm-hmm. Which is totally fine. Things mm-hmm. change. Mm-hmm. And I've had a very successful, fantastic 40 years.
Okay.
So there's nothing to complain about.
Okay. Have you thought about like coming up with AI tools, or you're past that point? You're gonna just shut?
I'm past that.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you had a good.
I'm past that, and when the only big mistake I made this year was taking on a client I really didn't want to work with anymore, and so I'm done with it.
I see.
Totally done.
Okay.
And as I said, it's not negative. It's very positive.
Yeah.
I've had a fantastic 40 years. Mm-hmm. I had fantastic business, made a lot of money. We did very well, mm-hmm. and I'm closing up shop, being very happy.
Okay, I'm curious because I haven't talked to anyone that actually said AI was replacing their business. So at what point, was it 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that you realized that it was starting to creep in?
It's through some market research magazines that I get. I've been reading about it.
Oh, I see.
And so, there's not one industry there's not one industry that's not changing. Everything is changing.
Yeah.
And that's how the cycle is. People drive cars now. They used to drive buggies or carts, right?
Yes.
Things change.
Mm-hmm.
Things change, and you're grateful for what you have when you have it, and you just move on.
Just move on. Just move on. Move on.
So, but best of luck with somebody else, okay?
Okay, well, enjoy your day. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right,
bye.
Yeah, bye. Now, that call was not planned nor staged. I'm actually doing some more research on, I talked about this before, the silver tsunami, and making some calls here. And this was the first time I heard someone say that AI is replacing their business. She does market research where they did surveys, and basically what she was saying is that people are choosing AI tools over like surveys because they just take too long and it costs too much. And she had a really good attitude, being that she had the company for 40 years and she was very successful in her time. She said, just things change and times move on. So I just, I was shocked. That's why I took my phone, I took my headphones off. I had to let you usually make my calls out of my headphones. But it was going in a direction that, of our conversation today. So, hey, it's real out here.